but life itself. In the 60s, New Zealand's Peter Snell and Murray Halberg took on the world's best and won. The face of running had been changed forever. It was the vision of one man, Arthur Lydiard, the most controversial and successful coach this century. The original Ironman in 1945, he turned himself into a human experiment. For 13 years, pushing himself to extreme physical limits, discovering the key to running faster over any distance. The mountainous Waitakere Range in Auckland was his testing ground. Lydiard discovered stamina, not strength, was the hallmark of fitness. Stamina gave an athlete the ability to maintain speed for a required distance. Stamina was achieved through tough endurance aerobic work. Lydiard ignored traditional training techniques and beliefs prominent in the 40s. He turned his own running into a fitness revolution that swept the world. Since then, critics have been forced to accept his principles, that people live longer, healthier lives if they run. The theories he tested on himself and his runners have since been confirmed by exercise physiologists and sports medicine experts. Lydiard was convinced inactivity was the wrong way to treat coronary victims. He got them jogging and changed their lives forever. One man's vision became the world's reality. Arthur Lydiard inspired people of all ages to run. Some of those became champions.
I'm an impetuous person. I'm impatient. I can't stand dithers. It's not a matter of what people think of you, it's what you think of people that's important to me. I couldn't give a damn what people think of me. It's what I think of the people I'm dealing with that's important to me.
Lydiard, now a daily casual runner, was born in 1917 in Auckland. His father, a jeweler, his mother, a housewife. At 16, Lydiard left school to work in this factory. Playing sport meant playing rugby in those days. Training was not taken seriously. Practice often meant little more than a chat and a cigarette over a beer. Practice on the paddock inevitably led to more practice in the pub.
I used to smoke heavily, and of course when I was a boy, no one ever thought anything adversely about smoking. Everyone smokes, so you naturally start to smoke. And I got a hold of a doctor's book. It made sense to me what I read about smoking and the effect on the lungs and the cardiac system. So I decided I'd go out, and I hadn't run for a little while. You know, rugby football, you practice one night in those days and played on Saturday, and then the summertime you did very little. And I went out for a run, and I came back and urinated blood, and I felt my lungs were getting torn apart, and it made me realise that I was really in bad shape. It was just a question of trial and error. You know, I knew this, that it didn't matter what exercise you did, you could do too much or too little of it, and you could do it too fast or not fast enough, and you could do it at the right time, the wrong time. I knew that. It was a question of finding out exactly how to put this program together.
A 1920s text, The Science of Athletics, gave Lydiard his early understanding of the mechanics of running. He combined what he read with what he discovered when he ran himself. He learned speed was important, but stamina was the key. It enabled a runner to maintain their speed over any distance. Lydiard developed an endurance training system, now accepted as one of the most significant coaching innovations of our time. He ran his own grueling course through the Waitakares during midday heat and early morning cold. His methods prompted a greater understanding of human potential. The revolution had started. The Lydiard way was producing a new breed of champions. He discovered an athlete's performance is governed by stamina, an enduring ability to maintain speed over distance. To achieve that kind of stamina, runners had to train harder than ever before. Before Lydiard, marathon runners averaged only 40 miles a week. Sprinters and middle-distance runners trained on the track. Pulling all the different methods together, Lydiard combined track work for speed with distance and hill running for strength, developing speed and stamina at the same time. His blueprint for champions. His runners were so strong on the last 200 meters of a race, they just kicked away. Determined to strike the right balance, he ran 250 miles a week. A marathon fitted in before and after work at the shoe factory.
Man, knock off work and then go out and run. And not one night a week, every night of the week. I could. We'd rather play football and do a couple of nights a week.
Lydiard ran his first competitive marathon in 1949 at 32, winning national titles. He now knew the mental and physical courage needed to run the marathon was common to all distances. Lydiard, a self-educated man, ended up teaching the teachers. Around the world, he's known as the professor. Then, in 1950, still experimenting, he competed in the marathon at the 1950 Empire Games.
They're away, and the four New Zealanders, Clark, Bromley, Fox, and Lydiard, take the lead. 2 miles, and the leaders are Elite South Africa, Lydiard and Bromley, New Zealand, Prentice, Australia, and Fedoric, Canada.
By the early 50s, a formula for success was emerging. Lydiard now was being followed by a small group of devotees. Murray Halberg, Barry McGee, Bill Bailey, Jeff Julian, and Ray Puckett were just local lads from the same working-class neighbourhood. Peter Snell and John Davies would join them later. Where Arthur ran, they ran. Eventually, the boys ran faster and longer than they dreamed they could.
For me, I guess at times it got to a stage of almost a faith. And whilst I'm not a religious person, I think I can appreciate a religious person who says that they have a faith in a God or something. And I guess I had that blind faith that if Arthur said it, he was the coach, it was true. And by following what he said, this would happen and so on in a natural progression. And it did.
It was in a language that you could understand and you could appreciate. And it sounded right.
There would have been no golden era but for Lydiard. He was the key to the whole thing.
Hey, he was the greatest coach in the world.
We knew that Arthur's kind of training was getting the kind of results that we wanted to get personally for ourselves.
Between 1954 and 1962, Arthur's boys won 48 New Zealand titles. Then they took it to the world. Peter Snell will become one of the greatest middle distance runners of all time.
Powerful Peter Snell forces his way into the clear, passing fellow New Zealander John Davies.
He really is entirely responsible for that era. He was the architect of it. He had the inspiration.
As runners, believing his tough training regime was harmful. But he stuck to his guns, demanding at least 100 miles a week.
There was no compromise with Lydiard. You either shaped up or shipped out. He nearly killed us at times.
Lydiard expected a lot of his runners, but he also believed that to be successful, an athlete had to enjoy running. The boys found training with Arthur more physically demanding than anything they'd ever done, but they also had fun. Lydiard coined the phrase, train, don't strain. Enjoyment came from knowing your own limitations.
He was my guide, friend, mentor, the guy I cursed most on a wet day, the guy that I was most thankful for as I stood on the victory dais. He was to me a father figure. He was a fun guy. He was a man, and yet he always treated us as men, as equals.
He was really more than a coach. Coach is a very small word. It would have a very big meaning. Arthur was a psychologist, a physiologist, an analyst, a friend, and for people like me, my father died when I was 18, and I met Arthur when I was 18. So he just about took over a father role as well.
There was nothing false about him. You just seemed to have that person that somebody who you could just talk to, and he could explain it and he could put you right, and someone who you could come away feeling great after talking to him.
He really expected us to take notice of what he said,
And if we didn't do what he said, which I think was very rare, he wouldn't be very impressed with us, and he would let us know what he thought of us.
I never picked an athlete in my life. I never ever asked anyone if I could train them, and I never ever turned anyone down. I just trained the local people, and I never went to the high schools and picked out the good runners to train. I just trained the local kids, and because I'm a believer there's great potential everywhere. If I could have gone to the high schools and got the best athletes to train, we probably could have had a lot more good athletes. And it sounds egotistical to say it, but it's just true. So McGee's going to take the pace, make the pace, right? Yep. And the other guy's just going to tuck in behind. So are you ready? Go.
The runners he trained not only reflected his ability as a judge of talent, but of character.
I wouldn't give a damn if an athlete was the greatest potential in the world. If he let me down once, I'd never bother with him again, because if they let you down once, they're going to let you down again. And as I say, I can't mess around with fools.
They could choose at will the national titles they wanted. As an extended family, they sat around Arthur's kitchen table, strategically planning their assault. If they wanted it, they went out and won it in record time. That's if they could get out of bed.
But his problem wasn't to get me here. His problem was to get me out of bed.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
We're only half a mile down the road. You see, they used to start. They used to throw rocks at my window. A little porch at the front of the place. Not this morning, lads.
I'll do a crook this morning. I'll go later.
Everything that we did was the complete reverse of what was the norm in those days. You know, if they said you should have a good steak before you compete and things like that, we did the opposite. Because we had a group of guys who were keen, a good mentor, a good coach, a guy who knew what he was about, prepared to do something quite different. The formula was all there for success.
Murray didn't like getting beaten, and I know I tried for 10 years to beat him in a mile, and only beat him once. But Murray was unbeaten in the world internationally for 5 years.
He would tell one of us that, if we didn't get stuck in and didn't really get cracking, that our mate would beat us. When one of your teammates was going to beat you, there was a lot of pride that sort of built up, and Arthur knew how to sort of rub each one against the other a little bit. Who to kick in the backside and who to pat on the shoulder.
Okay, slow down, coach. Slow down, coach.
I've got to get this knee one going, I tell you.
Geez, Halberg, you're moving real well, boy.
Inspired by Lydiard, the boys ran during the day and again under lights at dark. Every spare minute they ran, knowing before they could gain Lydiard's respect, they had to complete his tortuous 22-mile course through the Waitakere Ranges. The course became known as the Waiaturua. It was the ultimate test of stamina. Steeped in the heroics of Edmund Hillary, running the Waiaturua was their Everest. It was painful, but they grew through it, becoming stronger, tougher men.
But Arthur took no prisoners. I was coming down to Rangi Hill, and every time I put my leg down, the top of my muscle, the leg was wobbling from side to side, and it was really raw, it was like running over a bit of... And I said to Arthur, the tops of my legs are raw. And he said, so am mine. And he opened up a gap and it was down the road. So I never complained again.
They set new records at their local Owairaka club, winning more national titles than any other club. Today, 30 years later, the times they recorded remain among the best ever. Ray Puckett paced Bill Bailey to a world 20,000-metre record, but it was Murray Halberg who kicked off their international rise to fame.
Murray Halberg got into the Olympics in 1956, but we hadn't refined our program, and we had to build Halberg up anyway because he was more or less invalided at the time through a football injury. So progressively we went on, and by the time we got to 58, we more or less knew how to put the program together to get the optimal results, and also produce our best form on the day. So that when Peter Snell and John Davies came along, they got the benefit of what we'd done previously.
I don't think New Zealand was ready for him. I think he was well before his time.
1958, the year Murray Halberg won a gold at the Empire Games, was the year a new all-round athlete was invited to join the Lydiard School, Peter Snell.
An important person in that was Murray Halberg, because he had the reputation and the status, and we were sort of hanging on his coattails. And I still felt that way even after winning a gold medal myself, that sort of a junior partner in this whole whole team. As I think a lot of people have come to realize, Arthur is someone who forms very strong opinions very quickly, and that's part of why he's a great coach.
Lydiard convinced his runners that if they could run the Waiaturua and still feel fresh afterwards, they'd be ready to take on the world, in spite of what his critics would say.
I think he knew when someone was overdoing it. In my early days, he assigned me to someone who he knew wouldn't run me into the ground, and by that I mean kept me away from Bill Bailey, for example. He was able to produce his athletes in a condition where they weren't overtrained and they weren't flat, just time after time.
Lydiard had no confidence in the New Zealand Amateur Athletic Association to make the right decisions that would give his boys a chance to beat the world.
I can remember some of the old school coaches coming to me and saying, "Don't train with Lydiard, he'll burn you out."
I was out one day, I remember, and I ran into a coach, and he absolutely ridiculed the training we were doing and told me that Lydiard would kill us. And of course, exactly the opposite happened. What we did under Lydiard absolutely transformed us.
And we just minded our own business. We were just the local club out there in Lindale and Owairaka, and we trained out there together, and because we achieved goals and got some national prominence, suddenly we found that we were confronted with all these amateur rules, which no one worried about previous to that. And if we had invitations to go anywhere, we were led around with managers and all these other people that we didn't really need, and it became too complicated.
Ignoring the critics, they toured the country, preparing themselves for their ultimate international onslaught.
I always taught my athletes to look at the world record book, not the New Zealand record book. You've got to aim at the top, and I always remember sitting with Peter Snell in the car. We'd been out training and just outside my place in Wainwright Avenue, and I said, "Peter, you know, the way you're improving, you could probably break some world records." And he said, "I don't think I could, you know, I don't believe I'm that good." I said, "Well, I believe you can."
New Zealand athletics had arrived, but the rift between Lydiard and authority was widening.
There were men who wanted to prove themselves. They had something to prove. They wanted the right to run where they chose, which the administration at the time denied them. I think they were jealous of his success. They were jealous of his desire to do his thing, to train athletes the way he wanted to train them, to run athletes where he wanted to run them, and to get the best results.
As a race, or not as a race, but hardly a race, we're a conglomerate of peoples. But as a country, don't necessarily accept that we have greatness in our midst at the time. I suppose history does point this out, and it's not probably peculiar to us. Just having lived through it, I wonder that quite often people aren't recognised until it's too late, until they've gone, they've left New Zealand, or they're even dead.
In many countries, they let the coach get on with the job.
Lydiard got on with the job in spite of the politics, and the golden era of New Zealand running was about to begin. It's less than 2 hours for New Zealand to win 2 gold medals. Peter Snell, 21 years old, ranked 25th in the world, wasn't expected to get past the first heat.
It's very clear in my mind. We were watching some other, these were Canadians, other athletes, half-milers who were working out, and they're doing extremely impressive 400-metre runs on the track. They're running them about 52 seconds, and I run mine at about 55, and so I was sort of feeling a little down about it, and Arthur said, "You can forget those guys. They're leaving it all out there on the track. They're not even going to get past the first round." It's just incredible how he can sort of say that. And most people would be impressed and would think, gee, they're going to be good, but he just wrote them off.
Friday, September 2nd, Snell lined up against Roger Mearns in the final.
I always taught my athletes, always try to run the second half of your race faster than the first. That's the way to run races.
Now Roger Moen surges ahead and Snell goes through. Power carries him to the lead. The complete unknown wins.
Minutes later, it was Halberg in the 5,000 metres.
He becomes Murray Halberg, Olympic gold medalist.
Gradually came the realisation that we could in fact take on the world and beat them.
Later, Barry McGee, third, and the bronze medal in the marathon.
Unaware that he was holding third place.
The mission had been completed.
To see Snell and Halberg come through and substantiate what we've been doing over the years. And you've got to realise that those athletes, they took me for granted in the sense that they had faith in what I was doing. They had to get through that slog. They had to get out and run those hundreds and thousands of miles they were doing without really knowing if they were going to achieve their goals as Olympic champions.
Lydiard was the overnight toast of Rome, even though he was there unofficially, excluded from the official New Zealand team party by an old guard who did not accept his methods. He was in Rome only because public funds were raised to send him there.
I think the star, like I did, believed he had the answers.
The manager of the 1960 New Zealand Olympic team, Joe McMenamin. Unlike other officials, he was part of the new generation who acknowledged what Arthur had done.
Arthur I'd put down as the pathfinder of the new technique of coaching, particularly distance people. Took a lot of courage, took a lot of cheek, took a strong personality, and that's Arthur Lydiard.
After his success at Rome, Lydiard wanted to develop New Zealand's potential as a mecca for world runners, but he was still ostracised by the NZ3As.
If we'd have had national programs like they had in the communist countries, where we could, in the motivation of money in the United States, and we could have gone through the country and got the best athletes, we could have had a continuity of these great athletes, I'm sure of it. They're everywhere. Even today we've got them in this country. It's a matter of training them properly.
American track and field named Lydiard Coach of the World. Top runners came to New Zealand to compete. Lydiard organised these events, not the NZ3As. Commercialism hit New Zealand athletics. The split between the coach and the official body widened.
We've never had crowds like we drew in the early days. I mean, 40,000 at Western Springs to see Snell run, 20,000 down in Wanganui, I think 30-odd thousand in Christchurch, just to see one man run.
Lydiard and his team of 4 drew even more attention in Europe.
The thing that sticks mainly in my mind, I suppose, is the Wanganui race in 1962. We really hadn't sort of, I don't think, deserved that sort of crowd that showed up there, but it ended up being a great evening.
January 1962, another world record falls. Peter Snell knocks 1/10 of a second off the world 1 mile record. The following week in Christchurch, Snell set 2 world records in one race.
Past the 4:40 mark, Snell is overtaking him and will go out into the number 1 position. The rest of the field is trailing out behind. And how the second lap has sorted them out. Snell is coming home 25 yards ahead of the American Dupree.
Incredibly, Snell's 800-metre record on grass still stands as a New Zealand record today, and it's only a second outside the current world mark.
When you know what you're doing, and after some years you've gone through everything that is possible to think about, and you put it into practice, you found out in practice what gives the best results. Then you feel confident in what you're saying to young people, and you can motivate them.
Lydiard, in great demand overseas, turned down training offers to coach at home.
Phone went continually, and it meant that I couldn't continue working. So I got a milk ground and went out at night to be away from people. Even then, we had people come out and talk to me at night in their pajamas.
With financial help from Rothmans, he toured New Zealand coaching the coaches, changing their attitudes, not only about running, but other sports.
I always remember Don, we were up at Whangarei once, and he had his footballs, hard coarse football shorts, And I said to him, I'm going out for an hour's run. And he said, I'll come with you. I said, you really think you can, you know, run for an hour? So that was the bait. He put his running shorts on, and we actually ran 10 miles in an hour. Don was a big man. He came back, there was blood running down his legs. He chafed so badly, but he did it.
Perth, 1962, a predicted Grand Slam at the Empire Games. Still, the NZ3As ignore Lydiard. Again, he's not a part of the official party. This time, K-Road businessmen and the boys stage a race across town to raise the money.
They're all there. Halberg, Snell, Jeff Julian, Bill Bailey, all those great names turned out. But the point is, so did 10,000 people turned out in Cranhappy Road to watch them. Lydiard was held in great esteem. He was really a cult figure.
Snell, as expected, wins gold. Perth also sees the debut of a new New Zealand star.
Just made it.
I would have never achieved what I did in athletics if there hadn't been a Lydiard methodology. I'm just a weakling, you know, I don't have much natural muscle at all. And Peter Snell used to look at my legs and joke about how thin they were compared with his, and why didn't they snap, he used to say. And Arthur recognised this, of course, and by going out and doing his endurance work, and it really killed me in the early days. You know, I can remember running 7 miles and being absolutely exhausted. When I came to Auckland, he said, John, you're going to run a 22-mile run around the Waitakaris. I'd never been round it, and the longest run I'd had was 15 miles. And he sends me out with his 16-year-old son. I'm a 22-year-old man, and the 16-year-old son, Gary, trots around there and helps me through this run. I was absolutely shattered. I went to bed for the rest of the day and drank about 10 cups of tea.
John was a real threat to my turf.
Snell first, Davies second in the 1500 metres. Tokyo, 1964. It's not necessary to raise money now. Finally, Lydiard is recognised by the New Zealand Amateur Athletic Federation and sent as an official coach.
Using his great power, Peter Snell breaks into
As
his
a
sprint down the
tribute to
back
that
straight.
decision,
No one
Peter
can stay
Snell
with him.
wins his successive Olympic 800-metre gold
With
medal.
the opposition floundering in his wake, he pounds up the home stretch to shatter his own Olympic record by 1.2 seconds.
Snell and Davies in the 1500 metres.
As we went down the back straight, suddenly there was a whoosh, and Snell came pounding past. I had these real strong memories of that moment, because here was this guy with these tree trunk legs, ripping huge hunks out of cinders. They aren't tracks like they are today. And his spikes were just leaving holes. And I could feel the dirt when he was near to me coming up over my legs.
Snell gold, Davies bronze.
He has his way of looking at the world and how things are done, and pretty much, and certainly in track and field, it's right on, and it really works, and it's worked time and time again. Being able to achieve good athletic results is a mystery. You talk to Arthur for just a minute, it's absolutely no mystery at all.
Immortal recognition for New Zealand runners is only part of the Lydiard legacy. There is another. Joggers are everywhere. Jogging for fitness and health is one of the most significant developments of the 20th century. That too began with Arthur Lydiard. Imagination with such speed, it's become a wonder of our age. It all started at an insignificant meeting at the Tamaki Lions Club in Auckland. Here, Lydiard explained the cardiovascular benefits to be gained from running.
Our body is dependent upon oxygen. Every metabolic action or reaction in our body, directly or indirectly, is nearly always dependent upon oxygen. If we can increase the oxygen content of the body, all our metabolism functions better. So this is the key to athletic performance and endurance, but also it's one of the key aspects of keeping fit and healthy and delaying the aging process.
After that meeting, a group of overweight middle-aged men went for a slow run in an Auckland park. It was 1961. The world's first jogging club was formed. They couldn't run from one lamppost to another at first, but in only 8 months, some of them were running marathons. Jogging increased their resistance to illness and heart disease. They discovered new energy from jogging, and they found new enjoyment in life. Bill Bauman, a top US sprint coach, was in New Zealand at that time. He was invited to go for a jog.
So Bill Bauman got the inspiration and went back to the States and did things we didn't do. I mean, he was very very entrepreneurial. We never thought of selling T-shirts and getting into shoes. You know, all the business aspect of it, and writing books, and Bill Bauman got right into that area. And
the big thing when I got back to Eugene, Oregon, was people said, "Well, what did you learn down there?" And I said, "Well, I learned what I expected to, that they had a lot of very fine middle distance runners and super long distance runners. But the big thing that I learned was that Arthur was the founder or the big man in an exercise that he chose to call jogging."
Bauman and Lydiard have shared their theories of successful coaching for the past 30 years. When Bauman was awarded the Kennedy Medal of Honor for his contribution to the health and fitness of the nation through jogging, he replied, "I am but the disciple. Arthur Lydiard from New Zealand is the prophet."
No question in my mind that Arthur is the prophet and he's the founder of this exercise. As a disciple, I took advantage of, I think, every opportunity to have people become involved at all ages, not only just the youngsters or the college people, but people up to the age of 70 or older. And I'm carrying on the sort of thing that Arthur explained to the people in New Zealand first and that I experienced when I was down there.
What began as a tentative exercise of a few in the 60s became a movement of millions in the 80s.
The first time I've attempted to run this, I'm usually away overseas somewhere, and I'm looking forward to it. At 71, I'm no contender for the Commonwealth Games. When I used to run years ago out in the roads, people used to lean out the cars and think you were stupid. I was running with Hallberg one day after he won an Olympic gold medal, and a guy leans out of the car, he says, "Who the hell do you think you are, Hallberg?" He didn't even know it was Hallberg. You went into hysterics, you know.
And then you'll hear a clap.
How many times have you done this?
First time.
First time?
First time.
My
I'm usually out of the country when this is on.
Well, here we are.
Earlier this year, Lydiard joined 80,000 joggers in the annual Round the Bays fun run in Auckland. His breadth of vision and tenacity of purpose has encouraged people from all walks of life to put on their running shoes and take to the streets. There was a third crucial side to the Lydiard running triangle: heart attack victims. Jogging increases the supply of blood to the heart, which is important for healing and improving cardiovascular fitness. Contrary to the time, Lydiard encouraged heart patients to literally run for their lives.
This man came to me and said, "Look," he said, "I'm 74 years of age." He weighed about 18 stone. And he said, "I've had 3 coronary attacks." He said, "You think I can run 20 miles in 6 months if I start training now?" And I said, "Well, okay." 6 months that day, he went out and actually ran 20 miles without stopping. And he had newspaper reporters down there, 2 of them on cycles beside him, because I think they thought this was going to be the story of the week. Jogger drops dead, but they were the ones that were falling off their bike at the finish.
2, 4, 5.
Medical experts debated the merits of Lydiard's ideas.
He was convinced that the problem with the generation was that they were sedentary in their habits and that their quality of life could be improved if they exercised regularly, and he was dedicated to this. And of course there are colleagues, in those days there were people who used to say, you know, that exercise is for the birds.
The belief that a coronary meant the end of active life was dispelled by Lydiard and his team of pioneers who reversed medical thinking and extended life for millions. In 1965, Lydiard left New Zealand. His relationship with the NZ3As soured.
For some unknown reason, the NZ3As thought that I was usurping too much power, that it was actually stated that who's running athletics in this country, us or Lydiard. And I was only doing it for nothing and helping them. That's all I was doing it for.
He wrote books. His amateur status came under fire. Unsanctioned, he would pick up the phone and get the world's best runners here for successful commercial meets. He wanted to train the country's best.
It was a stalemate type of thing. They were happy with what they were doing to me, and it didn't really worry me what they were doing to me. And if they kicked me, well, I kicked them back, and that's all it was to it.
He wanted to set up a training camp, and but he needed money. He had none, and 3Os were not interested.
MP Warren Freer wanted him appointed as a full-time national coach.
We lost out very badly then, and we
have, in my opinion, not made it up.
And they had the chance, but they just couldn't stomach Arthur.
If we'd had a Lydiard and that type of guy, that personality, that mana, athletics in New Zealand wouldn't have gone through the bad patch that it has.
He has his constituency outside of New Zealand anyway.
They didn't really understand what Arthur was on about and what he was doing, but the rest of the world was catching on, and it was only when they copied Lydiard's training then did they begin to catch up.
Lydiard took his successful program to the rest of the world: Europe, North and South America, Australia, Asia. His books have been translated into Russian and Japanese. The national team programs he set up in the 60s for East and West Germany are still in use today. He's coached Olympic teams from many countries, including Finland, and their great 1972 medal haul at the Finnish government honoured Lydiard with the White Cross of the Knights, their equivalent of a knighthood. In 1974, on a trip home, he trained an unknown runner, Dick Taylor, for the 10,000 metres at the Commonwealth Games.
He was so crucial in my preparation, and like many other people around the world have been involved with him, he just got that magic.
That same year in Christchurch, another New Zealand runner's international career was launched.
Arthur's a respected man worldwide, and I mean, he's had a great influence on the world of athletics, and I don't think there would be very many countries that you go to that have been involved in athletics that would not know the name of Arthur Lydiard.
Heather Matthews wasn't performing well until she met Lydiard.
Arthur's ideas were just so different. I think a lot of people poo-pooed them and just felt it was a fluke, but over the years, of course, we've come to realise that his principles were very sound and basic principles, and most of the distance coaches in the world will use some of those principles in their training of their athletes.
Never a prophet in your own land, America is where he spends most of his time today, holding seminars for coaches and training camps for athletes.
We're into the relaxed. So in actual fact, when you run, you should run more or less like you walk. We've got to have the hips under our torso. We know that our knee lift controls our stride length and stride speed. And the only way we can get our knee up is to have our hips under our torso. If you get your hips back, you can't get your knee up. So therefore, you should be running upright. Another thing we understand in running, that these muscles here are probably the most important, particularly in distance running.
Lydiard gets as much satisfaction out of training recreational runners as he does champions, even if they find it difficult to master his training techniques of bounding and knee lifting to develop strength and speed.
Right. Now get slow the next row. Just get the knees up. Drive off the back, it'll make a difference to you.
He really knows what it takes to be a good runner.
Got it in my mind, I can feel I'm going to just do better.
Learning to run a little taller, a little more relaxed.
The clinics are popular. The people that have gone to the clinics usually go back every year, even though they've had the techniques, as a refresher, as well as they love Arthur and to be around him.
He is kind of the foundation for a lot of the people who are teaching Americans these days.
Running is very, very much better for you than cycling or any other exercise other than cross-country skiing for cardiac efficiency.
He's not just coaching the beginners. Leading US runners are here to learn.
My PR in the marathon was 2 hours, 27 minutes, and I went down to 2 hours, 17 minutes. Along the way, I hold the American record for the marathon at age 39, at 2:20.
I owe all my success in running to Arthur.
When he sees something wrong, he speaks out. This time, it's the turn of the shoe industry.
In America, the shoe industry is based on advertising and gimmicks. A lot of people don't understand about running shoes. And I'd say your podiatrists in this country have created a lot of problems. They've created problems that have made a lot of money for themselves. And I can prove it on many occasions, and I often do this. I can take you to lots of people in this country.
While American runners and coaches flock to his seminars, Lydiard's influence has only been felt once on their Olympic team. Frank Shorter in the 1972 Olympic Marathon. The Americans had not been competitive over distance until Bill Bauman trained Shorter on a Lydiard program.
They recruit the best athletes into the universities and then give them too much anaerobic work, which creates an imbalance and destroys potential. And consequently, this is one of the reasons why, with 250 million people and all those millions of runners, they don't really do very well in middle distance and distance running.
American distance runners will once again be under the influence of Lydiard. Ex-pupil and confidant John McKenzie is the new US distance coach.
When I started coaching in high school, which was in the late 60s, I used Arthur's system. And people would say to me, boy, you're just way ahead of your time. And of course, all I was doing is reading Arthur's book and doing exactly what he recommended. And now if you would go to the high schools, say by 1980, they were all doing that very same type of training program. So Arthur to me has been by far the most influential person, and the person who has guided coaches and athletes. 95% of them, I think, basically use a form of Arthur's training system.
His influence has been felt from basketball to football. The conditioning coach for the Dallas Cowboys trains his team the Lydiard way. While most of the fitness work is done with weights, running and hill training plays an important part, although in the desert you have to improvise.
Since we don't have too many hills, of course, we build our own hills here. We have a machine, a diagnostic power trainer, where I can put the belt around the player and let him go out at about anywhere from 10 to 15% of what he would be running feet per second. So it's through a window of translatability relative to what he requires on the field.
In the 40s, Lydiard turned himself into a human fitness experiment. The nature of it was human potential. That experiment today has become a matter of science. At a medical research center in Dallas, Lydiard, after running for 44 years, is tested. World-renowned exercise physiologist Peter Snell tests his former coach. The lab is a unique opportunity to test the man who set the world running. A man who still runs daily at the age of 72. The man who is skeptical about the scientific approach to sports.
All the way.
Vital capacity is way above normal.
Yeah.
Lydiard has a lung capacity 1 litre above normal and the muscle and bone structure of a man in his 40s.
He's obviously in great shape.
Well, I'm not influenced by so-called experts. I found in my life that very many so-called experts wouldn't know their elbow from their back end.
If a lifetime of exercise makes you look that good in your 70s, well, I'm continuing to do it.
The coach is back. New Zealand is now his permanent base. He lives near the sea in Auckland, alone after his second wife died tragically of cancer 6 years ago. Still traveling the world coaching, he manages to find time to train local beachlands lads. A new generation. They compete at the Auckland Champion of Champions.
He's in front.
James first in the 1500 senior race. Damien first in the 800 metres senior. Matthew first in the 1500 metres junior.
Good man, Matthew.
The national sporting body, the Hillary Commission, are still trying to find the right structure for this country.
You can set up your structures, but you're not going to succeed unless you have the right people at the top.
The first
30 years on, his advice has not changed. But will the country listen this time?
You invest in a coach. You give money to athletes, but you invest in a coach. And if we can produce a good coach in that area, we're going to get a continuity of good athletes. And this is what this is what they have to understand. And coaches are the motivators.
National coaches John Davies and Bruce Milne have asked Lydiard to set programs for the 1990 Commonwealth Games. He, more than anyone, is aware of the wasted years in this country.
I never mislead anyone. I lay it on the line. I say to the young guy, look, you've got this wonderful potential. You could be very good at this or that. And if you're prepared to take a long view and work at it, you can probably be one of the best in the world. And but I don't dream it for them. It's their dream. If they want to be an Olympic champion, it's up to them to get out and do it. I'll help them, but I don't dream it for them.
There was a time when Lydiard's vision was to make New Zealand a mecca for middle and long distance running. There was a time when it was. There was a time when running was something only oddball ex-athletes did. Then along came Lydiard. he ran and ran, ending up running where no one had ever run before.
Relive New Zealand's gold medal performances. Take a nostalgic look back at the 1974 Commonwealth Games and our athletes triumphant. And remember 74 this Friday on Television 1.